Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Plenty of things to talk about. Unfortunately, it wasn't the weekend we were all hoping for Lazio, and unfortunately, Lazio got beaten against Bologna. I would start, Alistair. It reminds me about what we said a couple of months ago, right? Lazio now has a good run of fixture. We can make points, etc., and then it happens again. Lazio loses points against Bologna, and now the table doesn't look good anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And it's continuing this kind of theme where Lazio are managing to, Bayern game aside, Lazio managed to get some very good results in big games, but have slipped up so many times now. So that's, Sampdoria, Udinese, Verona, and Bologna have all beaten Lazio. 0 points from those 4 games, and that's. It's tough, in the Champions League race. It's tough to get away with that, to get away with form that bad against teams lower down the table. Thankfully, because nobody's particularly consistent this season, Lazio are still somehow right in the mix. But they need to snap out of this. I'm worried because Inzaghi said he's worried, and usually Inzaghi's never worried.
Yes, and let's not forget that Lazio is going to play Juventus, so it's not very easy, the coming matches. And Juventus' situation is not good as well. They drew against Verona. They badly need to win the next couple of matches to keep the chance of the Scudetto alive. So it looks like, the next fixture will be quite complicated for Lazio. And the other thing, Alistair, people said, well, after the Champions League, you're tired, etc. Well, look at Atalanta. They won. So it cannot be only for Lazio, right?
No, but it does make you wonder what kind of weight that result and that performance had on maybe the mentality of the team. I think maybe rather than physically tiring them out, mentally it might have had a bigger impact, because I think they did look at times fairly demoralised on Tuesday in that game, because the difference in quality and the errors they made was there for everyone to see. And it was a big failure in the biggest moment in a lot of these players' careers. So it's quite hard to reset, I think, mentally, going from a night like that back into, the meat and drink of a Serie A match at Bologna on the weekend. But even so, I mean, it was just, it was one of these games where there was so little to be positive about. Even if you're the most optimistic Lazio fan in the world, there wasn't really an awful lot you can take from that game and say, well, here are the positives, because they were shocking in attack. They gave away cheap goals defensively, and there we are, and not scoring goals and losing another game against a team that should be beaten, really.
I would add that the first 10 minutes probably Lazio played well. Then after the penalty, the match was pretty much over for Lazio, which is not acceptable. I know you watched Roma yesterday, as you usually do, and AC Milan had 3 goals disallowed and still keep fighting, keep pushing, and finally they scored and they won the match. Roma had pretty much one chance in the second half. They scored, and immediately Milan scored back. That's the mentality I'm not seeing anymore in this team. It looks like they give up immediately as soon as things goes bad, which is concerning.
Yeah, well, you're right. The reaction to the penalty miss was really disappointing, because that happened. It wasn't a miss; it was a save. But these things happen. Penalties go wrong, especially against Bologna, as we know after Correa's howler last season. So, I think that with there being so much time left in the game to react, it was really, really disappointing. Not only that they responded poorly to the penalty and by giving away a goal so quickly, but that this team by now should know that they have 90 minutes to get the results. They've done it time and time again. They've got late goals, they've performed comebacks. Yeah, and after the second goal went in, it was almost like, well, we're done here. And Inzaghi resorted to the kind of panicked plan B that we've seen a few times when it's kind of when he's admitting, in my mind, that he's out of ideas. When he starts changing the formation and throwing on all his attacking players, and they seem as confused as we are watching it, because Lazio never really playing this kind of new system, and nobody really knows where they're supposed to be, and as a result, they struggle to actually create any chances. Lazio really didn't create much yesterday, and I think Immobile's penalty miss wasn't a huge coincidence, because for me that was the result of a guy who's really low in confidence at the moment. I saw that he's gone 4 games without a goal now, and apparently that's the first time he's done that since December 2019, which is quite impressive in many ways, but actually a bit worrying for current times.
I thought one of the reasons why Lazio played so bad was that the top players of Lazio, we always criticize Patrick, Hurt, etc. I thought the reason Saturday against Bologna was that the top players of Lazio failed to perform. I'm talking about Ciro Immobile, Luis Alberto, Milinkovic-Savic, Correa, and that's why Lazio lost. This time we have to blame those key players that usually are the one that are making the difference, and maybe this is the most concerning part of that defeat.
Yeah, I do think though that the question of Inzaghi's rotation is right to be raised again. We did get a question along these lines. Darren L said, a year ago you talked about Inzaghi not being willing to trust the subs, instead persisting to play players even when they're not at 100%. Is that what we're seeing now? Again, history repeating itself, and we're no different from where we are last season. And I think he makes a good point. It is what we were talking about after lockdown, and Lazio had those problems. Inzaghi just refused to bring in the players that he had available, be it fresher options. And now, I can understand why he perhaps wanted to play his strongest team in this game to try and restore a bit of their confidence. But it does feel like Lazio have kind of been found out in a lot of games recently, where you press them high up the pitch and wait for them to make a mistake, and you kind of predict their counter-attacks, and suddenly their danger is diminished a lot.
Alistair, do you know the last match that Sergej Milinkovic-Savic didn't start? When that was?
1986?
Nearly. It was the 29th of November. Today is the 1st of March. I mean, this means that he played all the matches, Champions League, Coppa Italia, and Campionato, since the 29th of November. Not only, but the last 2, 4, 6, 9 match, he played all the 90 minutes. He hasn't been subbed. Now,
sorry, on you go.
I mean, he's important. He looks tired. But the thing is, did we need Milinkovic-Savic against Parma? Did we need him against Benevento? Did we need him against Spezia? Did we need him in the Coppa Italia against Parma? I mean, if you don't rotate Milinkovic-Savic in these matches, then, I mean, when does he rest?
It's true. It's definitely true. Now, my question in response to that is the fact that this is happening, and, it's the same with a lot of players, Acerbi, Immobile, Alberto, when they're available, they'll always play. Is the fact that Inzaghi's not rotating those players, is that something worth criticising Inzaghi for, or is that something worth criticising Iglitare for? The fact, why is there not been better communication, seemingly, between the two about the way that the squad was strengthened? Because it seems like, and we've had enough of the season now to come to this conclusion, that Inzaghi just doesn't really like the players that have been signed for him, because he doesn't use them.
But can we say that Andreas Pereira cannot play in this team? I mean, Pereira started 18 matches last year with Manchester United, who, we have to admit, is a bigger club than Lazio. So Pereira started 18 matches, all in Premier League, I'm talking about, with Manchester United, and it's not able to start more than 3 matches for Lazio. That doesn't make sense at all. I cannot believe that Inzaghi thinks that Pereira is not fit to play for Lazio. Uh, that's simply unacceptable. Uh, as you said, if Milinkovic Savic, Luis Alberto are fit, they always play. There is not even the doubt of it. I can agree that in defense, we don't have great replacement, especially now without Luis Felipe Radu. But I think that never before Lazio midfield has a lot of quality players, and instead Inzaghi never rotates them. The other point is the only matches Luis Alberto miss, he plays Akpa Pro, which is not a playmaker. Um so I don't want to say that Inzaghi is rubbish, etc. I still rate him high, but this is his weakness, right?
Yeah, well, I guess. I mean, it's an easy thing to say. On the other hand, the faith he has in his trusted players, you have to say, is a part of what feeds into creating the really strong team unity, team togetherness mentality that has helped them achieve the success that they have had as well. So, I think that these players really buy into Inzaghi's vision and buy into his ideas, because once you've earned his trust, he will back you completely. He backs his players like almost no one else. So there is that to consider with it. If he was, we've seen how Alberto, Immobile, Lulic, senior players, we've seen them react badly to being substituted in games before. So you can only imagine that if they're going to behave that petulantly about being substituted, that if they were actually being dropped, every second game, that might cause a problem in the dressing room. So maybe Inzaghi is actually, it's part of a balancing act to try and get his best team on the pitch, but also keep everyone happy. Apart from the rotation players, obviously.
Yeah, but the problem is that we saw players tired against Bologna, and we don't know if we're going to play against Torino. But then next weekend there's Juventus, and if we have Milinkovic Savic tired, I don't think he's going to recover for Juventus. So I think Bologna was the perfect match to rotate a little bit. Everybody else is doing. I'm not saying change all 11 players, but Ciro Immobile, Milinkovic Savic could have rest, and still, if we think that we need the best team available to beat Bologna, then there's something wrong. I mean, if Lazio cannot beat Bologna with Andreas Pereira or Akpa Pro starting, then this is serious trouble. We're not talking about Champions League team. We're talking about middle table team. So,
yeah, I mean, in terms of the idea of this squad needing freshened up, which seems to have been over the last week. I think we've seen a lot of talk about this and Lazio's transfer market going wrong and it being an aging squad. And so we've had a couple of comments. Philip Pizzano just said same players, no youth. And Crow Laziali said for next season, which members of the old guard, which he says is Parolo, Radu, and Lulic, would you keep? Saying I would personally like Radu to stay as a backup option. What do you make of that? Do you think? I mean, we've talked a lot this season already about there being limited, places in the squad. So who do you move on? Who do you say it's time? Because if we are going to get a more youthful team, they have to make changes and kick some people out.
Yes, but for example, Lulic now is ahead of Fares, which creates me some problems because we saw Lulic and he's not fit. So can it be that Fares is so bad that Inzaghi prefers to bring in a player that is not 100% fit than Fares? And again, as you said, it's Inzaghi making this decision. So Tariq could say, look, Parolo is done. Let's not renew his contract. And maybe Inzaghi said, no, I need him. This is the problem. We sent away Pedro Neto, that everybody now can see that he's a top player. I would move from at least a couple of these players. Parolo, Lulic probably. I don't think they are able to play to the Champions League level anymore. But I don't know, maybe it's time this summer for a revolution. Maybe if some good offers arrive, replace Milinkovic Savic or someone like that, and with that money, change and go and sign some quality youngster players for this team.
Well, honestly, I'm starting to wonder how much of the delay over Inzaghi's contract is down to what conversations he's having about the summer transfer market. Because if you put yourself in his position, Inzaghi's gonna have seen the summer signings that he was given last season and kind of accepted by now that it's been a failure, it's not been good enough. And he's going to look at what he's achieved and say, well, I've got this team in the Champions League for the first time in 13 years. I've got them to the knockout stages of that competition for the first time in 21 years. I've won a Coppa Italia. I've won 2 Super Coppas. And they're going to sign me as, Mohamed Faris and Vedat Murici. So, I mean, if he's not going to be backed this summer, and if he's not going to be convinced that there is a road forward where there is a next level to get to, he, as a young coach, would be within his rights to say, well, what am I doing here now? How much further can I go? And I don't want that to happen, but I don't think it's a coincidence.
But on the other side, I'm thinking, okay, this year I sign you a player that we bought for 18 million euros and he's hardly playing. We got you a player from Manchester United, not from, a small Hungarian third division team, and he's hardly playing. You asked me for Fares, I brought it, and he's not playing because you're bringing back Lulic. We give you finally a squad for rotation, and you're rotating. We love you, but maybe if you're not that level of a manager, because we give you the tools and you're not using them. No?
Well, in this imaginary conversation, if I'm Simone Inzaghi, I'm saying you got rid of Bastos, my best striker, and all you did to replace him was brought in Wesley Hood. I mean, come on. It's like it's honestly like it's just awful business. So I mean, jokes aside, Bastos would have been useful this season. I don't see why he's been got rid of.
But again, the club could say, hey, you have Armini. He's playing in all the under national teams since he was 14. How can it be possible that he doesn't play a second with you? You prefer Parolo, central defender, than Armini. Explain me what's wrong. Why Inter launches Bastoni? Why Milan launches 225 youngsters, Roma, etc. The only team that cannot do it is Lazio. I mean, I love Inzaghi, but they are concerned. And especially in this season, when you're playing every 3 days, you need to rotate. Lazio is the only team probably that doesn't rotate that much. The only rotation we do is the left back, right? The central left back in the
because
defense.
We don't have one, yeah.
Yeah, it's Patrick, Musacchio, or Hurt. That's the 3 players that rotate. All the other team, the other 10, we already knew it. We already know it, right?
Well, now Adam Maricic is apparently centre back as well. That's 2 games in a row he's ended up in the back 3. So, yeah, I mean, this is the thing though. He's in Inzaghi's time at the club, he's now turned Patrick into a centre back from a wing back. He's turned Adam Maricic into a centre back from a wing back. He's turned Acerbi from a central defender to a left-sided defender. He has been kind of flexible with the options he's got, but the defence hasn't been good enough. But I think that you do make a good point. Like I think there are 2 quite strong sides to this argument, but for me that makes it even more problematic in that you can kind of see where a disagreement could arise from when they're discussing this contract. And as time ticks on, I think it becomes probably, they have said an agreement is ready and they'll do it at the right time, blah, blah, blah. But as time ticks on, you wonder how much it does become kind of dependent on where Lazio end up. we don't have the insurance policy this season of a Cup Italia. The Champions League is done. Sorry, guys. So it's entirely down to getting in the top four again, I think, because even finishing in a Europa League spot this season probably isn't going to help much. I don't think that's really going to be seen as a great success by many people.
No, and the biggest problem is who would be the replacement? Because Allegri is free, but do we believe that Allegri or Sarri would Lazio sign those expensive manager? We know it's not going to happen, right? So we said all the weaknesses of Inzaghi. Okay, can we find someone better with a Lotito salary? I don't think so. So that's the biggest problem, at least for me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of the other things that the club you imagine love about Inzaghi is that he is very good value for money for the success he's had and the length of time he's been at the club. For him to still be on what 2 million net a year, I think, that's pretty good. If you consider that Conte's on 12, it's not bad.
No, by the way, Inzaghi did this bizarre press conference because officially the match is on tomorrow, but we don't know if Lazio will play against Torino, and he said that he will know only tomorrow if Lazzari will play, how injured is Lazzari, when he will recover. So we have another problem with Lazzari. We don't know when he's going to play, and we don't know if Lazio is going to play Tuesday against Torino, Wednesday. Some Sky said that the match could be postponed to Wednesday. Torino doesn't want to play, so it's another funny thing about this funny season of Lazio, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a day before the game, not knowing if you're playing the game is, I mean, even for Serie A's levels of organisation, it's quite impressive, really. But yeah, so sorry that we can't tell anyone about that. But like you said, they've got Juventus coming up after that. I think that's a huge opportunity, really, isn't it? Because, like I already mentioned, Lazio have had a habit this season of stepping up on big matches. Juventus, like you mentioned, have not been all that impressive. Got a bad result against Verona with a draw on the weekend as well, and it's a fixture that helped inject real momentum into the season in the past for Lazio, beating Juventus. And yeah, I mean, I think they are a very beatable Juventus team. It's not as terrifying a prospect as it used to be. So if we're ever going to get a reaction, I think we can almost feel more optimistic that it would happen against Juventus than it would happen against Torino in a strange way.
Yeah, definitely. Especially against this Juventus, because we saw them that they're really struggling. Apart from Cristiano Ronaldo, the others are the midfield of Juventus is terrible at the moment. Again, we have to see how Lazio players will arrive to this match. Ciro Immobile is not 100% fit. Milinkovic Savic, Luis Alberto, they haven't been playing very well. On Patreon, on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge, Davide asked her a question. He thinks that over the season, the players have lost the attacking cutting edge, and that helped us finish the game before the halftime, which now lead us to focus on our defensive error. It's true that Lazio is scoring not that much this season, much less than last year. Do you think David is right, or do you think there's something else?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that the team's lost its cutting edge in attack. That's something we've complained about already several times. And like I mentioned, I think last week or the week before, when Immobile stops scoring, it makes everything so much harder for this team, because although there are other players in the squad capable of getting a decent goal return, he's the only one who's been doing it reliably. And as we've now seen in the last few games, once his goals dry up, Lazio find it far more difficult to get results. So it does kind of bring back the Ciro dependence debate that we've had in the past. And I think so much hinges on that. It's not a good position to be in, but I don't think Correa is reliable enough as a goal scorer
Yeah,
And
the problem, Alistair, is, as you were saying, is we rely only on Chiro because Caicedo scored a couple of goals, but he got injured a lot this season, so he didn't play. Correa, in all the season, have scored only 2 goals in Serie A, and he have started 17 matches probably. That's simply not acceptable. He has 2 goals and 2 assists all year long in Serie A. I mean, this is not a level for a Champions League player. Uh, as I said, Caicedo have scored more, but he's injured most of the time. And on the other side, Murici had problems, and Murici have scored pretty much the same number of Correa playing less matches. This is a huge problem. This is a huge problem. The attacking is struggling massively because our strikers, except Chiro, doesn't score at all. So,
well,
yeah.
Yeah, but then beyond that, if your strikers are out of form and they're not putting away the chances, that's when you need to be able to rely on getting the kind of fundamentals right, which is trying to have well organised set pieces to get easier goals from your free kicks and your corners. And oh my God, I was shouting at the TV watching these corners again yesterday. I mean, Alberto hit one that just went straight out of play and landed on the roof of the net, and then Pereira changed instead of Alberto to take one, and it just went straight to the first defender and headed clear. And it's just not something Lazio are seemingly capable of doing, is getting these easy wins. And they're not easy really, but you put in enough work on the training ground, you should be able to get a return. So we're not getting the goals from the strikers, but we're also not getting them out of the defence from these set pieces. Or we've seen like through Hakimi. Okay, Hakimi's a freak, but through players like him at Inter, that your wing backs, if they're attack minded, can get you good amount of goals as well. We're not getting goals from our wing backs, so yeah, it's not been great.
Do you remember? It was 3 years ago, I think, where Lazio was dangerous on corner kicks. We started scoring a lot of corner kicks. Now I think the other teams is pretty happy to give us a corner. They know that Luis Alberto would try to score directly on the corners every single time, and he never does it. And apart from that, we tried stupid things that usually results in a counter-attack of our opponent, because this is what happened most of the time in the last 3 matches, right? Corner kick for us, and Bologna had a huge chance. And this happened even against Cagliari, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So, corners have become dangerous for us, in the sense that we are not dangerous, but we allow the other team to be.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, you do wonder how much of it is, do we just not have, players who are good in the air? Is Milinkovic-Savic the only one? And is he even that good in the air? But he's not scoring that many goals in the air. Murici, we've seen a little bit of what he can do, but he's hardly on the pitch when we're taking these corners. But then the defenders aren't. Acerbi's got many gifts, but scoring headers from corners doesn't seem to be one of them. So we missed it. It was when we had De Vrij and Bastos in the same team, and those two were just absolutely nailing it.
You put Bastos in every phrase. You're embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm still in mourning. You see, I still haven't got over the news from last summer.
I can see you saying that with Bastos, Lazio would beat Juventus easily.
Hey, don't put words in my mouth, but I'm definitely agreeing with you there.
I knew. So, guys, we don't know if Lazio is going to play against Torino tomorrow or maybe Wednesday. But if they will, we'll be back with a podcast. Otherwise, the next podcast is going to be after Juventus-Lazio. A very important match, Alistair, because at the moment we are 7th. I don't remember last time we were so far away from the Champions League position. But Atalanta won, Napoli won, Milan won. So luckily Roma lost. So we need wins. We desperately need wins. And so we have to hope that the team maybe doing some turnover finally, start winning a couple of matches like we did before the Inter match.
Yeah, I mean, we're down to 7th now, but let's not forget the gap is still 3 points. The gap's actually 3 points to third, to Juventus now.
But Juventus and Napoli has one game to play, right? So
yeah, exactly. So I mean, like I said at the start, this is a season where you can kind of get away with dips in form like this because nobody is showing any particular consistency. But having said that, I think Lazio need to turn it on soon. They need to finish strongly and take advantage of this decent run of fixtures that they've got, or else it's going to be another year out of the Champions League.
Yeah. And now at the moment you are even out of the Europe League with the 7th spot.
Which would probably result in the best Lazio league season for 20 years or something. But who knows?
Well, I think we can wrap it up here with this positive mood. And thanks everybody for listening. Remember, you can find it on Patreon, Spotify, Speaker, iTunes. Please rate and review the podcast. And if you want to support the podcast, we are on patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. Thank you, Alistair, and thanks everybody for listening. And we're going to talk after the next Lazio match. We still don't know which it's going to be. Bye.
Ciao.